There comes a moment in every woman's journey when she realizes that power is not in how much she gives, but in how much she honors herself. You've done enough, you've loved enough, you've tried enough. You've fixed, explained, begged, and compromised more than you were ever meant to, and in return, silence, distance, mixed signals, half loves, confusion. But here's the turning point. The transformation doesn't happen when he finally wakes up. It happens when you do, the moment you step back, not out of manipulation, not out of spite, but from a place of self-worth and clarity. Everything begins to shift. That's not weakness, that's alignment. That's magnetic, because when you stop chasing, pleading, and proving, he feels the vacuum, he senses the absence, he sees what his comfort made him blind to. That's when he steps forward, not because you forced him, but because your absence spoke louder than your presence ever did. This is not about games, this is about gravity, and when you stand in your truth, in your grace, and you step away from what no longer values you, you become unforgettable. When you step back and choose silence, you're not just withholding words, you're shifting the entire emotional dynamic of the relationship. Silence isn't empty, it's full of power. It disrupts the usual patterns, the habitual responses, and the cycle where you're always the one initiating, fixing, explaining, and hoping. When you remove your energy, your words, and your effort from the equation, the other person is left alone with their thoughts. And that's where the real shift begins. Most people don't realize the weight of someone's presence until it's no longer felt. In relationships, especially the ones where a woman has constantly shown up, communicated her feelings, and tried to make things work, there's often an emotional imbalance. The man gets comfortable, he knows you'll always reach out, always answer, always care. That certainty becomes his crutch. He stops listening because he assumes you'll always be there, no matter how he shows up or doesn't. But silence shakes that certainty. It forces him to sit with the echo of your absence. Suddenly, he starts wondering why the texts have stopped, why your energy feels different, why the warmth he once took for granted is no longer accessible. And that discomfort he feels, that's not just confusion, that's recognition. He's recognizing that your presence was not a given, it was a gift he never really acknowledged while it was freely available. That silence becomes a mirror he can't escape. It reflects everything he failed to do, every moment he took you for granted, every signal he ignored. While you used to chase clarity through words, now he is forced to seek it in your absence. This is where emotional impact is born, because unlike spoken words, silence leaves room for imagination, and imagination, especially in a man who has grown used to your energy, is powerful. He'll begin to question if you've moved on, if you've finally had enough, if someone else is filling the space he neglected. That questioning can do what all your explanations couldn't. It can wake him up. It's not manipulation, it's a natural law of energy and attention. You pull back and it creates an imbalance. The emotional pressure builds on the other side. He feels it, even if he doesn't fully understand it at first. And while he's in that space of uncertainty, you're reclaiming your power. Your silence is not weakness, it's a conscious choice, a declaration that your worth no longer depends on how well you can express it to someone who isn't listening. It's the decision to protect your peace rather than overextend it, and in doing so you become more magnetic, more mysterious, and more unforgettable. Because in a world full of noise and desperation, silence from someone who once loved loudly is thunder. It shakes the foundation, it forces movement, it demands attention, and more often than not, it's the silence that finally brings him to the edge where he either steps forward or fades into the space you've outgrown. Detachment is one of the most misunderstood concepts in relationships, especially when emotions run deep and the desire for connection feels overwhelming. Yet, it is precisely this misunderstood power that can transform everything when you step back. Detachment doesn't mean you no longer care or that you've become cold. It doesn't mean closing your heart or turning bitter. It means recognizing the difference between what you can control and what you cannot, and choosing to protect your peace over trying to force outcomes. When you step back in healthy detachment, you release the constant need for reassurance, the impulse to check in, the compulsion to fix what isn't yours to fix. You stop tying yourself worth to his responses, his moods, his inconsistency. Instead, you return to yourself, to your center, where your value was never supposed to depend on someone else's behavior. This space you create by stepping back isn't empty, it's protective. It's a sacred boundary you build so you no longer bleed emotionally for someone unwilling or unready to meet you with the same energy. When you detach, you are saying, I am open to love, but not at the cost of my own dignity or sanity. You are saying, I refuse to lower my standards for breadcrumbs of attention. That shift radiates strength, because you're not rejecting him out of anger or playing a game. You're stepping back out of respect for yourself. You are making it clear, even without words, that your love is a privilege, not an entitlement. Healthy detachment also interrupts the chase dynamic that so often poisons relationships. As long as you are anxiously pursuing answers or approval, you are trapped in a cycle that keeps you powerless. When you detach, you end the chase. You give both yourself and him the opportunity to see things clearly. In your absence, he can finally feel the weight of what's been lost, and he must choose whether to step up or drift away. Either way, you win, because you've regained control over what you allow into your life. Detachment is about emotional freedom. It's the ability to feel love without letting it consume you. It's knowing that your happiness is not dependent on his next message or his ability to show up. And, ironically, it is often when you detach, when you stop feeding the pattern of overgiving, that he starts to feel the void you leave behind. That's when he's forced to confront his own feelings, fears, and desires. That's when he might realize he can no longer lean on your constant presence as his safety net. So don't fear detachment. Embrace it as a powerful act of self-love, because the peace you gain will always be worth more than the confusion you leave behind. When something is always available, it becomes invisible. It's human nature to overlook what we believe will always be there. That's why stepping back is so powerful. It shifts the emotional economy of the relationship. Scarcity increases value. When you're constantly present, constantly texting first, checking in, forgiving without real change, showing up without being invited, you unintentionally lower your perceived value in his eyes. Not because you're not worthy, but because you're always there. Your energy becomes a background noise he doesn't notice until it stops. But the day you step back, the moment your energy pulls away, that's when everything changes. Suddenly, the woman who was always a text away is no longer reachable. The comfort he built his carelessness on begins to crack. Your silence becomes noticeable. Your absence becomes weighty. He doesn't just notice you're gone, he feels it. That space you used to fill so easily now echoes, and that echo grows louder with every passing day you remain unavailable. You're not doing it to manipulate him. You're restoring balance. You're removing the emotional discounts he's been taking advantage of. And that shift does something psychological. It forces him to reevaluate everything. He starts remembering the moments he didn't appreciate, the love he dismissed, the woman he took for granted. He's no longer swimming in an ocean of your affection. He's stranded, wondering why it suddenly dried up. That shift, that lack of access, rewires his perception of you. You're no longer the woman who's always around. You become rare. And what's rare is respected. This is where your value skyrockets, not because you changed who you are, but because you stopped overextending, you allowed space, you allowed him to feel the cost of your absence. And it's in that gap, that silence, that stillness, where he truly begins to measure your worth. Not in your explanations, not in your emotional labor, but in the realization that he lost access to a presence that once made his world warmer. Scarcity reminds him you're not replaceable, you're not just another woman, you're not someone who can be picked up and put down at his convenience. When you're always available, he never has to earn your presence. But when you step back, he's faced with a choice: step forward with intention, or lose the very thing he thought he could always come back to. So don't fear being less available, don't fear creating distance. That space doesn't weaken the bond, it tests it. And those who truly value you will rise to the occasion. They'll recognize that your time, your attention, and your love are not infinite resources. They are treasures. And when something is truly valuable, it's never taken for granted twice. When you step back, something powerful happens inside you. You transition from being the chaser to becoming the chooser. This shift isn't just external. It's an energetic transformation that changes how you carry yourself, how you see yourself, and how others respond to you. For too long, you may have been operating from a space of emotional survival, trying to win someone over, prove your worth, or get them to see your value. That's what chasing looks like. It's reactive, it's draining, and it places your happiness in someone else's hands. But the moment you stop chasing, everything pivots. You're no longer waiting for validation. You're choosing alignment. When you choose to step back, you're telling yourself a new story. I am not here to convince anyone to love me. I am here to observe who is capable of loving me the way I deserve. That subtle change in mindset puts you in the driver's seat. You are no longer performing for connection. You are evaluating what comes toward you with clarity and confidence. This shift isn't about arrogance. It's about knowing your value deeply enough to stop auditioning for people who can't even see it. As the chooser, you set the tone. You decide who gets access to you, not out of ego, but out of self-respect. You no longer settle for breadcrumbs, excuses, or half-hearted efforts. You don't need someone to complete you because you've realized you're already whole. That energy is magnetic. It draws in people who are aligned, ready, and secure, and it naturally repels those who are only attracted to your neediness or emotional availability on demand. This role reversal confuses the person who's used to you chasing. Suddenly, you're calm, unbothered, and focused on your own life. He senses the energy shift. He feels the loss of control, the absence of your emotional dependence, and that's what jolts him. He may try to reach back out, test your boundaries, or re-engage you through old patterns. But now you see it for what it is. You're no longer craving his attention. You're watching his actions to determine if they align with your standards. You're asking yourself, does this serve my peace or disrupt it? Becoming the chooser doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you care enough about yourself to no longer give access to people who aren't emotionally equipped to handle your love. It's not about punishing them for not choosing you. It's about honoring yourself enough to stop choosing them when they don't step up. That shift, subtle, powerful, undeniable, is what separates the version of you who begged for breadcrumbs from the version of you who's waiting for no one. You are no longer seeking validation. You are sitting in your power, quietly observing, calmly deciding. That is what changes the game. That is what makes him realize, maybe for the first time, that your love was never a guarantee. It was a gift, and now it's on you to decide if he's ever allowed to receive it again. A real man doesn't run when you step back. He rises. He doesn't panic because he's losing control. He reflects because he's finally been given the space to see things clearly. When you pull your energy away from someone who's been inconsistent, distant, or careless, the immature ones vanish. They disappear, avoid, distract themselves, or pretend like nothing's changed. But a man with depth, with integrity, with emotional capacity, he responds differently. He feels the shift, not just as a loss of attention, but as a challenge. Not in a competitive way, but in a soul-level realization, if I don't rise, I'll lose her. That kind of man doesn't see your step back as a rejection. He sees it as a mirror. It shows him what he wasn't doing, where he was falling short, how he took your love as something constant and convenient. He doesn't blame you for creating distance. He thanks you, because now he has the opportunity to step forward from his own truth, not just out of routine or comfort. This is what separates the boys from the men. Boys need validation and constant reassurance. Real men are stirred into action when they feel something meaningful slipping away, not because they want to control it, but because they finally recognize it. He'll think about how he showed up when you were always giving. He'll remember the way you were present, supportive, loving, and how little he reciprocated. That space you've created forces him to choose, either level up or stay the same and lose you forever. And if he's truly the man you believed he could be, that space won't push him away, it'll pull him forward. He'll want to fix what he broke, not with promises or just words, but with presence, consistency, and action. Understand this, men who are emotionally immature or just not ready for real connection will be repelled by your boundaries. They'll call you cold, dramatic, too much, or too distant. Let them. You're not stepping back to test him. You're stepping back to see him clearly. To give him the space to choose you, not by convenience, but by conviction. And if he doesn't, that's your answer. If he does, though, if he steps forward with respect, clarity, and commitment, you'll know it's real. Real men are drawn to women who hold themselves to a higher standard. They admire strength, not desperation. They are activated by boundaries, not weakened by them. And if you want to know what kind of man you're dealing with, step back. The way he reacts will tell you everything. A real man doesn't need to be begged to show up. He wants to, he chooses to, and when he finally steps forward, it's not because you asked, it's because your silence spoke louder than anything you could have ever said. Your energy is the blueprint for every relationship in your life. It sets the tone before a word is even spoken. When you step back, you don't just change your behavior, you shift the energy field between you and him. And that shift, it's undeniable. He may not be able to explain it in words, but he feels it. Suddenly, the attention he took for granted is no longer there. The warmth, the check-ins, the emotional safety you used to provide, that current of love and loyalty is no longer flowing toward him. That space, it gets cold, and in that cold, he feels the absence of your energy more than anything else. Your energy isn't just presence, it's power. When you were chasing, proving, overgiving, your energy was spread thin, constantly reaching outward. That energy said, I need you to choose me. But the moment you step back, your energy folds inward. It says, I choose me now. And when your energy says that, everything around you recalibrates. People who fed off your neediness or emotional openness start to panic. But those who truly care, they feel drawn toward the shift. It awakens them. It challenges them to match your new vibration, or be left behind. This is why stepping back is so magnetic. It's not the silence alone. It's the new signal your energy sends out, a signal of self, worth, of boundaries, of quiet power. You're no longer trying to convince him of anything. You're just being confident, clear, centered. That energy does something to a man who is used to being chased. It interrupts his pattern. He wonders why you're no longer seeking him, why your focus has turned inward, why he no longer feels the pull of your attention. And that wondering, that's when the chasing begins. But this time, it's not you. Energy doesn't lie. When you're focused on you, when you've taken your power back, you radiate differently. You glow from within, and that glow is what makes him look up, look back, and start noticing everything he missed. It's not about playing games or pretending to be something you're not. It's about reclaiming the energy you gave away too freely and allowing it to nourish you first. When you shift your energy, you change the dynamic. You stop participating in the same emotional loops. You create a boundary that says, I'm not here to prove, I'm here to be met. And if he can't meet you, that's okay, because you're not afraid to stand alone in your light. That energy, that self-possession, is what truly separates you. It's what draws in not just his attention, but his respect. And if he's capable of growth, it's your energetic shift that becomes the catalyst. Not your words, not your explanations, your presence, focused, elevated, and no longer centered around him, becomes the message, one he can't ignore. Let's bring it all together now. The entire journey we've walked through, stepping back, embracing silence, detaching, raising your value, shifting from chaser to chooser, and elevating your energy, is not just about changing a relationship dynamic. It's about reclaiming your inner power. You didn't lose him when you stopped chasing. You found yourself. That's the core. That's the win. You stopped trying to make someone see your worth and started seeing it for yourself. And in that space, in that silence, in that stillness, you rose. The most powerful transformations don't happen in loud declarations or emotional breakdowns. They happen in quiet decisions. In the moment you say, enough, I love me more, that one choice ripples through your life. The day you stepped back wasn't a day of defeat. It was a day of awakening. It wasn't the end of something. It was the beginning of everything. Because when you no longer tie your identity to how someone else sees you, you become unstoppable. You are no longer waiting to be chosen. You are choosing yourself moment by moment, breath by breath, truth by truth. The shift that happens when you step back is not temporary, it's foundational. You are laying the groundwork for a future where your love is no longer given by default, but by discernment, where you no longer show up for potential, but for reality. And yes, he might come forward. He might wake up. He might feel the emptiness you left behind and come running back. But now the question isn't, will he return? The question is he worthy of the new you? because you're no longer handing out access. You're protecting your peace like it's sacred. Because it is. Stepping back reveals truth about him, about the relationship, and most importantly, about you. It shows you who's ready, who's willing, who's real. But even more than that, it reminds you of what you deserve: consistency, clarity, effort, presence, love that doesn't need to be chased, love that meets you where you are and rises with you. You're not here to beg. You're not here to settle. You're here to align with someone who sees you fully and still steps forward. Not because you demanded it, but because they recognize the value of a woman who refuses to shrink. So let today be the day you walk differently. Let this be the turning point where you stop giving the best parts of you to people who haven't earned it. Let this be the moment where your silence becomes your strength, your absence becomes your message, and your energy becomes your standard. Because the day you step back is the day he is forced to either step forward with intention or step aside forever, and either way, you win, because your life, your love, and your peace are no longer up for negotiation. They are yours to protect, honor, and elevate, always. Thank you for sharing this space with me today. Thank you for showing up, not just to hear these words, but to feel them, to let them land, to let them shift something deep inside you. That's courage, that's power, and that's where transformation begins. You didn't come here by accident. You came because some part of you is ready to rise, ready to stop settling, ready to stop chasing, ready to own your worth in a way that no one can ever question again, not even you. I know the path of stepping back isn't easy. It takes strength to walk away from what once felt familiar. It takes faith to hold the silence when you used to fill it with effort. And it takes an unshakable belief in your own value to stop proving it. But I want you to remember, every step you take toward your peace, every moment you honor your boundaries, every time you choose yourself, it adds up. It's building something, it's building you, so whether he steps forward or fades away, let that no longer be your measure of success. The measure is you, your clarity, your calm, your refusal to dim your light just to keep someone close. You're not here to be chosen by someone who's still undecided. You are here to live in full alignment with who you are and what you deserve. As you walk away from this message, walk with your head higher. Walk with your energy centered. Walk with your standards raised. Not from bitterness, but from power. Because the more you choose you, the more the world will start to rise up and meet you with the love and respect you've always been worthy of. Thank you for listening. Thank you for growing. Thank you for becoming more of who you really are. And as always, take your power with you, protect your peace, and never forget, the right people don't need to be chased. Goodbye for now. And until next time, keep rising.